The one constant is change. Change is continuous. Change is always there. And so it's really what are the big strategic changes that I'm seeing at my level? Well, I'm seeing that we're withdrawing our involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're trying to shift our focus back to what we'll call readiness, the traditional get ready for the next big war kind of thing. For the Air Force, at least, we've been at war essentially since 1991. We did not come home after Desert Storm. We continued the aerial occupation exercises, Northern Watch, Southern Watch. Then we went into the Balkans, K4, I4, S4, and then we transitioned into Kosovo, and on and on and on. So it's been non-stop ops, basically, combat operations. The challenge now becomes, you know, how do we rebuild our readiness? So that's sort of one shift that's happening. The second shift, and you heard it from our Commander-in-Chief, is what we'll call the swing to the Pacific. So our Commander-in-Chief with the National Security Strategy has sort of outlined this vision of we need to shift more focus on the Pacific and our interests in the Pacific. So during the Cold War, of course, our focus was in Europe, and then starting, you know, at the end of the Cold War, as I mentioned, our shift sort of went to Southwest Asia and the Middle East, and now we're trying to shift focus to the Pacific. The great thing about grandiose plans is they don't survive contact with the enemy. So we now have this, our colleague over in Russia, Vladimir Putin, that says, wait a minute, don't shift so fast because, you know, I'm still doing some stuff here in Europe that you might want to pay attention to. So that's always a challenge when you try to implement a strategic shift and then one of your potential adversaries throws a wrench in things. As GIs, we're sort of used to that, and we'll roll with it. The other shift that I see, especially in the Air Force, and it came out in a recent study that was done on behalf of Congress, was a shift to more total force. So in the Air Force, as you know, we have an active duty component, which I am a part of. We also have a reserve and guard component that are very important. Over time, we have come to rely more and more on that guard and reserve component. The study that was done on behalf of of Congress basically concluded, hey, we need to shift more capability to the guard and reserve. And so, of course, that comes with some change that then happens, and we need to work through and make sure that that shift happens in a deliberate and planned way and not in a chaotic way. And then, you know, also all of those strategic changes, sort of, if you put those in the back of your mind, now lay on top of that, if you look at the debt clock, it's $17.3 trillion. So, gosh, we got to do something about the debt. And so what do we have to do about the debt in the Department of Defense? We are one of the larger pieces of the pie, and naturally a big piece of that piece of the pie is manpower. And so the Air Force is looking to reduce its active duty manpower, again in relation to shift more capability to the total force, guard and reserve. So the original bogey at the beginning of this year was 25,000 airmen that would leave the active duty ranks. That was later reduced to about 22,500, and I don't know what the number is today, Chief. 19,000, 18,000, what? We need to have like a little stock ticker to tell us what the latest bogey is. But the takeaway is the active duty force is downsizing. Along with that, our budgets are downsizing. So operations and maintenance, procurement, all those things. So that all of those things now put together, those four big strategic shifts that I'm talking about, changes, they translate down to Keesler Air Force Base naturally. So we are, every week I approve, you know, 5 to 10 voluntary separation applications from our airmen that are vulnerable for a force management program or a reduction in force, and they are choosing to voluntarily either separate or retire. And up till now, I've probably approved about 60 of those. If you think that the total reduction across the Air Force, back to that 25,000 number, so that's about 8% of the Air Force active duty strength. So 8% of Keesler's active duty strength, I would expect to see about 600, 700 airmen separate from Keesler's active duty ranks. Of course, I've only seen about 60, so perhaps we're not reaching the goal with our voluntary separations. And unfortunately, that then translates to some involuntary separation boards that will occur this summer. And there's basically 13 different force management programs that we're trying to work our way through. So that's a big challenge for the team at Keesler.